New year, new debts to be paid.
My name is Claire Dawson. I'm writing this because people believe that families are a safe haven. However, this is not always the case. I am experiencing one of those different situations. These different situations lead to resentments, and these resentments grow silently over the years, until one day they explode. My family and I lived in a small town near Brighton in the south of England. My sister and I grew up here. From the outside, our home looked perfect. Flowered curtains, a garden that looked like paradise, and a house where the whole family had breakfast together every Sunday. My mother Margaret and my father Richard were what the neighbours called the model family. But the biggest secret of model families is this: not every child receives the same amount of love. I was the older sibling. My younger sister Emily, who was born after me, was a miracle in their eyes. The day Emily was born, I saw genuine happiness on my mother's face for the first time. It was as if it wasn't me, but the baby born that day who had started their life. As a child, you can't be aware of this. Only your intuition tells you. When Emily got new clothes, you say, luck. When Emily's misdeeds were overlooked, you say, she's younger. But as you grow up, you realise some things aren't luck. They are choices. I was good at my studies and responsible. I attended the best public school in the Sussex area. I had dreams of university. But to my family, I was always the manageable child. Emily was the child worth investing in. It all started when Emily was accepted into St. Catherine's Academy, a private school, an expensive school. When I heard the monthly fee, my stomach dropped. My mother cried with joy. My father proudly told the neighbours. It was as if Emily had won a prize. That night at the dinner table, my father turned to me and said, "Claire, you're smart. You'll find a way." The phrase, "you're smart," was meant as a compliment, but it carried a hidden judgment. "There's no money for you." Something snapped inside me at that moment. 2 weeks later, the mailman brought an envelope. Emily's first instalment had been paid. Not just the school fees, mind you. A new laptop and uniform had been bought, and a tutor had been hired for private lessons. My university applications, meanwhile, were like a forgotten file in a drawer. One night I asked my mum, "Why didn't you do that for me?" My mother was washing the dishes, wiping her hands with a dishcloth, and she looked at me. "You're a strong girl, Claire, but Emily isn't. She's very sensitive. We need to support her," she said. Sensitive? Am I not their daughter too? When I said this to my mother, her voice softened, but her words were harsher than before. "Everything doesn't have to be the same," she said. Yes, it didn't. The following year, I found a part-time job in London and started saving money for my own school expenses. Emily, on the other hand, became the shining star at St. Catherine's. My mum and dad went to every ceremony. They applauded when Emily took the stage. When I got tired from working, they told me to stop exaggerating. And then, one day, a letter came from Emily's school. The last 2 instalments had gone up. Of course my family would pay. They broke into their savings just for this, even changing my dad's retirement plan. He wouldn't retire for another year, just for Emily's school. At that moment, I realised it wasn't about money or me being smart. It was about choosing one child and making the other invisible. That night, I sat in my room and stared at the moonlight for a long time. I admitted to myself, I had been trying to earn my family's love for years. But love wasn't a test. It wasn't something children had to earn either. But I was always failing that test. Just then, my phone rang. It was Emily. She sounded excited. "Claire, guess what? I got accepted to King's College London." Noticing my silence, she quickly added, "My mum and dad are covering everything. Tuition, accommodation, everything." The phone felt heavy in my hand. Emily wasn't talking about an achievement. Emily was saying she had been chosen once again. And she was talking about it as if it were her natural right. I closed my eyes. A warm feeling rose inside me. Not sadness, not resentment. And I made a decision. Making Emily's life easier was making mine harder. And that had to change. But I couldn't bring about that change by talking about it. Because I had talked for years. I had waited for years for them to understand. I wasn't going to wait anymore. At that moment, I made a promise to myself. Every time I was ignored, those who ignored me would one day be forced to notice me. And when that day came, I wouldn't be the old Claire Dawson anymore. And when that day came, I wouldn't be the old Claire Dawson. A week later, we went to London to see Emily's campus. I had to go too, because if I didn't, they would say I was jealous. While touring the campus, he suddenly turned to me and said, "We need some money for Emily's move. You'll help out now too." My heart sank for a moment. They weren't doing anything for me, yet they expected support for the child they had chosen instead of me. The amount they mentioned was equivalent to my 3 months' income. "I'm already struggling to cover my own expenses," I said. My mother intervened. "But Emily's future is at stake." "Emily's future? What about me? My future was never even considered." We stayed at the hotel that night. While Emily was in the bathroom, I turned to my mother and said, "Did you ever think about me?" She repeated the same sentence to me. "It's not a comparison. Emily has needs." I had hundreds of things I wanted to say, but I swallowed them all, and only one sentence came out of my mouth. "Didn't I have a need?" I whispered. My mother looked away from me and chose not to answer. That silence said it all. When we returned from London, as I walked to the train station to go to my own home, I felt a strange clarity inside me. For years I had been struggling to prove myself, but now I understood. Proving myself was useless, because in my family, love was not measured by success. Love was given to the chosen one, and I was not the chosen one. That night, I turned on my computer. I thought about my family's financial situation. Emily's expenses, the mortgage, my father's retirement. When I added it all up, a terrible truth emerged. They couldn't sustain this life. So Emily's education wasn't really an investment. It was a collapse plan. The next day, my dad called me. "Claire," he said, "can you send the money this week?" At that moment, the voice inside me was calm. It didn't say yes. It didn't say no. Instead, I said this: "I can send it, but on one condition." My father was silent. "From now on, every payment will be in writing," I said. "What it's for, how much, in whose name, everything will be recorded." My father was surprised. He didn't think this was necessary. I smiled, but my smile wasn't sweet. "Because I'm going to be invisible now," I said. And I hung up the phone. That day, I took the first step toward my revenge. I began documenting everything they had taken and would take from me. Those documents would be my justice. Someday. I sent the money my father demanded from me, but this time it was different from the others. I wrote a sentence in the bank memo. Emily Dawson, education support, debt. The word debt stood out in the description like a dagger aimed at its target, Because for years, everything taken from me had been taken in the name of family. The word family here did not carry a sense of belonging. It was like a lock, a knot, and I was now undoing it. The next day, my phone rang. I answered it. It was my father on the other end of the line. His voice was angry. "What do you mean by debt, Claire?" he said. "It means debt, just like you read it," I said. "We didn't ask you for a debt." "You asked me for money, and I stated my condition." "Record," I said. My father held his breath. My mother whispered to him from behind. She said something about Emily, but I couldn't quite understand. Then my father spoke again. My father held his breath. My mother whispered to him from behind. She said something about Emily, but I couldn't quite make it out. Then my father spoke again. "You've changed." Yes, I had changed. Because my eyes, which had been blind to the truth, were now open. They didn't love me. They loved my money. From then on, every money transfer, every WhatsApp message, every phone call, everything was recorded. I had an Excel file. I even named it Dawson Family Ledger. At first, I said I was doing it to protect myself, but after a few weeks, I realized it had turned into something bigger. It wasn't a defense. It was a process of construction. I was preparing a file, and that file would lay bare years of injustice. Emily moved to London. Every week there was a new expense. Deposit, books, courses, networking events. My mother talked about them all as if they were a natural right, but every time I asked just one thing. "Do you want this in writing too?" After a while, my mum stopped texting. My dad called instead, because my mum knew writing fixes the truth. My voice could be forgotten, but the document couldn't. Then one day, a message came to me from Emily's account. "Claire, really? My mum says you're making everything weird." I smiled when I saw this message. What they found weird was my refusal to submit. Despite all this nonsense, I was still helping my family, and my efforts to protect myself seemed strange to them. I replied, "Everything was already weird. I just stopped thinking it was weird."
Emily called me. I could hear the anger in her voice. "Why are you writing me these things? It's like I'm the guilty one." She was my little sister. Of course, she wasn't guilty, but she was blind. After I told her that, she said, "You're jealous of me." There it was, the sentence I'd been waiting for, the simple trick my family had used for years to silence me. Jealous older sister. There it was, the sentence I was expecting. That simple trick my family had been using for years to silence me. Jealous big sister. I took a deep breath. "I'm not jealous of you. I reject injustice," I said. There was silence. Then she continued speaking in a calm tone. "Mom and Dad do this. Talk to them." I was already talking, just in a different language. That night I did something new. I recorded not just the money, but the past, too. I downloaded old photos, award ceremonies, birthdays, and the difference screamed even in the photos. Emily was always in the center. I was always on the edge. Even a family album could turn into a court file. A week later, my dad called me home. "We need to talk," he said. There was tension in his voice. That was a good sign, because tension means control is slipping away. When I got home, my mom was standing in the middle of the living room. Emily was there too. The three of them together. It was as if they had gathered to judge me. My dad saw my file. My laptop was open, the Excel screen. "What is this, Claire?" he said. I sat down on a chair. For the first time, I was sitting comfortably in their house. "This," I said, "is the accounting of my life." My mother approached angrily. "You're tearing the family apart!" I raised my head. My voice was calm. "No," I said. "The family was already torn apart. I just made the crack visible." At that moment, I saw fear on my father's face. Because control was no longer theirs. Control was in the documents. And documents? They never stick to anyone's lies. That evening, the air in the Dawson family living room was heavier than ever. My mother stood stiffly, my father's hand trembling behind the armrest. Emily stared into my eyes in shock, as if we hadn't grown up in the same house for years. The laptop screen was still open. Dawson Family Ledger. Everything was written there, line by line, with the dates. My mother flinched when she looked at the screen. She turned to me and said what I had done was a betrayal of our family. I smiled bitterly. The real betrayal is choosing a child with a message. Betrayal is thinking about one child's future while leaving the other in the dark. I said everything that came to mind. My father tried to intervene. "Claire, we always did our best," he said. "No, they made a choice, not did their best." Emily stepped forward. But I raised my hand. "Not you, sister. You were just the name of the result." At that moment, our house fell silent as ice. Because the things everyone had been afraid to see for years were now in the memory of my computer on the table. Well, they were in our memories too, but like I said, no one wanted to see them. I took a file out of my bag. It didn't just contain financial records. It contained proof of every moment I had kept silent, every moment I had saved up over the years. Messages, emails, photos, even the phrase, "You handle it," which my mother had written to me during an argument. I placed the file in front of my father. "What is this?" he said. "The truth," I said. "And I'm not going to hide the truth anymore." My mother suddenly panicked. "What do you mean, Claire?" I replied calmly. "Do you remember Emily's scholarship application? You said you filled it out last month." My father's eyes widened. "Yes." "I work on that scholarship committee," I said. Emily's face went white. "What?" Yes, that was the real move. I had been working at an education fund in London for the past year. I had quietly risen, arrived at the right place. I was on the review team for one of the funds that supported Emily's school. And my family had ignored me so much that they didn't even know what I did for a living. My father said in a hoarse voice, "Why didn't you tell us?" I lowered my head. "Because you didn't ask." Then I pulled a piece of paper from my files. The bank statements showing the source of the payments made to Emily. Some of the payments were far above the Dawson family's income. The most striking among them was this: false statements. My mother's lips trembled. "Claire, please." That word was the only word I had uttered in years. Please. Scholarship committees launch investigations when income statements and bank transactions don't match. My family knew this, but Emily didn't. Emily spoke up, almost whispering, sounding suspicious. "Mom, what does this mean?" she said. It was as if a wall was collapsing inside my father. He flinched at the intensity and closed his eyes. And at that moment, I made my final move. "I can forward all these records to the fund management if you want," I said. My mother took a step toward me, her eyes filled with tears. "Don't do it. You'll ruin Emily's life."
She was silent as ice, but my words were clear. When my life was ruined, who stood up for me? I don't remember a mother or father defending me. Emily started crying. "Claire, please." For the first time, I saw real awareness on my little sister's face. Emily started crying. "Claire, please." For the first time, I saw real awareness on my little sister's face. I took a deep breath. I'm not doing this for Emily. I'm doing it for myself, I said, and closed my laptop. I put the file back in my bag. At that moment, my mother panicked and grabbed my arm, asking, "What do you want?" I gently pulled my arm away and turned my back as I walked away, answering, "I want justice." My father added, "How?" When I reached the door, I turned around and looked back at them. For the first time, Dawson was paying attention to me at home. For the first time, I was the centre of attention. "Tomorrow," I said, "I'm stopping paying for all of Emily's expenses. Also, every penny I've sent so far, it's been recorded as a loan. You'll pay it back." My mother said in shock, "That's impossible." "No," I said. "It's just hard. And I've been doing the hard things alone for years." Then I said the last sentence. It wasn't the end of the story. It was the seal of reckoning. "Now it's your turn." I opened the door and stepped outside. The night was cold. The town lights flickered in the distance. But for the first time, I felt no heaviness inside. Because revenge isn't about screaming. It's about learning to choose yourself. That night, the Dawson family faced my absence for the first time. And I knew this. Some families don't distribute love fairly. But life eventually sends everyone their own bill. I left mine on their table.